Hello, everyone. Hope you can hear me. As Rishi said, I'm Ankit, one of the co-founders and CTO at Bizongo. Today, I'm going to set up a little bit of context on what it means to really build technology for the B2B space. Um, we solve a uniquely Indian problem. So the idea was to give all of you a flavor into what does it mean to build products, to build technology for in the B2B space, in the manufacturing space for a developing economy like India. So that's something that I'm going to talk to you about. So I'll just start sharing my screen. Just let me know if you can see it. Give me 1 second. Okay. Can you all see my screen? Perfect. Yeah, so I think before I really go into what it means to build technology for B2B, I just wanted to give a little bit of an introduction of what we do as Bazongo and where, just so that the context is clear of the vantage point that we come from. So Bizongo is a B2B platform for unbranded goods. And when I say unbranded goods, what it means is all the products that you see around you, which do not have a brand. It's not like a Philips bulb, which has a brand. It is like a product which is customized, designed, and then manufactured. So something like packaging being one of our core areas. So you can imagine unbranded goods as packaging, unbranded goods as any T-shirt that you wear as well. That T-shirt comes to you with a Levi's brand, but before that, the T-shirt is just an unbranded good. Levi's tells the manufacturer that this is the exact size, specification, and the properties that I need on the T-shirt. So that's what we are. We are a B2B platform for unbranded goods. Our mission statement is pretty simple. We simplify supply chain and vendor management digitally for made to order goods. What does this mean? Unbranded goods are also called made to order goods, or goods which you customize and get manufactured. As Bizongo, we help our customers, enterprise mid-segment customers, digitize their entire partner ecosystem and automate their supply chain. And I'll talk a lot more about it as we go ahead. But I just wanted to set some context before we go deep into what does it really mean to build technology for B2B, and where does our experience come from. Before we really talk about building technology in the B2B space, I wanted to talk a little bit about what does the landscape look like in India, right? What does it mean to really think about India as a market? So today we have approximately 64 million SMEs and MSMEs units in India. These contribute 30% to India's GDP. But there is a study which states that amongst these SMEs, only there are still 68% SMEs which are not even online, which are not really using internet in any form. Another study shows that if we actually are able to digitize this segment, they will start contributing approximately 46 to 48% of India's GDP. Now, when we started Bizongo 6 years back, one of the core things that we wanted to do was to help businesses grow. We believe that if businesses grow, the economy of India will grow because they create a large amount of impact on the GDP of our country as such. One other thing that we've seen, and is something that is pretty clear, is that the technology penetration on the B2B side is much lower today than it is on the B2C side. B2C side, we've seen companies come in, really digitize the ecosystem. Today, we have mobile phones where people in the remotest of villages are also ordering online, really taking advantage of commerce, online digital commerce. But in the B2B sector, from a manufacturing standpoint, there is still a large amount of penetration which is not there. A lot of people are still not online, not being able to use technology to really grow their businesses. That's the landscape like today. But what does it mean? Like, what are the challenges in this space, and how do people really think about technology in this space, and why is it not penetrated as of today? Like in India, if you see, in the last from 2008 to 2019, this is how the manufacturing potential, or the segment that I talk about, right, unbranded finished goods segment, has grown. The problems that the segment, or largely problems which are uniquely Indian, the challenges that some of the people face, are that 70% of these units in India are actually small scale units. These are units which are set up, people who are in the Indian context very, very learned. They may not have formal education, but they're very learned and understand how to run a business. But the challenges that people usually face are, one, it's customized and it constantly evolves. Whatever requirements, whatever they get, it constantly evolves, and it becomes very difficult for them to catch up. The market in India is still relationship driven. You cannot replace the relationship with just a digital interface completely. You have to augment the relationship in a way which makes it easier for people to connect more, to take the advantage of technology and data more, rather than just assuming that it will be completely replaced. It's very agile because India is a growing company, growing economy. It is very, very agile and opportunity driven. There are constant changes. People look for new opportunities. Digital penetration in terms of access is low. There is a need for high amount of intuitive technology. And when I say intuitive technology, people in India, even at a village level, use phones. People in India, even at a village level, even if they're not educated, are able to understand how to get things done, right? That creates an opportunity for a country like India. But we need a lot more intuitive technology on the B2B side than what we probably have on the B2C side. And developed economy paradigms, like things that work in the US, things that work in Europe, don't directly apply in India because the ecosystem is completely different. The amount of organization is low, fragmentation is very high. There are small units across the country, really helping even large brands anywhere. And quality becomes a problem for these brands to maintain. Standards become a problem for these manufacturing units to maintain. Access becomes a problem for these manufacturing units to maintain. So I've in the next part of the section, I've just listed out a few things that we keep in mind when we really build technology for this sector, and things that we believe are important for everyone to keep in mind while you're building products for this unorganized, fragmented sector. First point is, you should understand that the customer is more than just the user in this context. And what do I mean by that? When you look at B2C, you have a user. You have somebody who's using your app. You have a person who's using the app day in, day out. You can understand his behavior and understand how he's going to use the app. When you talk about B2B or a manufacturing setup, it's not just the user, it's the entire company that you need to think about. The user is actually reacting in a context which is much larger than just the context of his own understanding. There are company policies, there are things that the manufacturing unit need, there are quality paradigms, there is a lot of control, government policies to follow. So it's very important when you're building technology for them to understand their overall context and not just understand not just look at the user who's really using that technology. So while you build features or while you think about the user, it's very important to understand that you just don't have a user, you have an entire company which is running on your platform, and they depend on their growth on your platform. So how do you make sure that it works best? From an infrastructure standpoint, right, when you build technology in the B2B domain, what I've noticed is you should build for spikes rather than a continuous scale. So when you think about scale in B2B, and we've seen this personally as well, the planning cycles for every enterprise you work with will be different. You may have only 200 companies, but the shipments, the supply chain, the partner ecosystem that they have will multiply and compound very fast. So it's important for you to understand, while you're building a platform, that build for those spikes which will come during different times. You don't need to keep the system scaled up entirely, but you really need to think about those spikes and really need to plan for it. It will not be a continuous scale, but you will see large amount of spikes as you work with the companies which are in the supply chain and manufacturing first space. Because The planning in India is still catching up. There is still a lot of catching up to do in terms of how companies plan. As I talked about, the market is very agile, so it requires you to build a platform which is really built for spikes. And I cannot stress this enough. Intuitive design or intuitive paradigms are what is needed in this space. You will find people who've not used technology before, who've not really been online at all. We work with large enterprises where people are trained, but on the other side we also work with hundreds of manufacturers where technology penetration is very low, but we've seen a lot of uptick and a lot of interest in those manufacturers as well to adopt technology, because in the last 2 years we've also seen that people have realized with the pandemic and everything coming in that it is very important for them to digitize as well, to take full advantage of the internet and really reach out to people. And this creates the need for you also to build the products to enable them to really scale up to that level. If you are able to define your technology in a way that becomes intuitive for them, that becomes really one click sort of a thing for them, you will be able to see that adoption because the intent is already there. It's about building India first. It's about building for an unorganized market first, rather than building in a generic fashion per se. That's something which every engineer as well should keep in mind as you think about building for this space. What I also, one more thing that we've really realized it, while data is the king everywhere, while you solve problems, you have to look at data. And it works really well when you look at a large set of data on the B2C space, and you're able to find patterns and you're able to solve problems. But in the B2B space, the on-ground supply chain and a sort of the fragmented and organized market, it's also important to keep your users very close. Take that on-ground feedback from users day in, day out, because that is also able to give you insights other than data on things that you wouldn't have even thought of. Because trust me, we've seen problem statements which are very, very unique, and India first problems in this segment which you don't think of when you're looking at from 100 feet kind of a view. It becomes important that you go deep there. Build your platform as a modular platform, because everything that you build will not suit every one of your customers. It is, B2B is about more company focused rather than user focused. So it will not, everything that you build will not just be used by everybody on your platform. So it's very important to build microservices in some way, or build it in a more modular way, so that as and when you're able to use your platform to accurately solve the customer problems that you encounter. So build the platform in a more modular way, build that technology in a more modular way. Businesses depend on you, right? So I feel that in the B2C segment, or when you talk about the platform going down somewhere in B2C segment, your revenue suffers. Any e-commerce company going down even for a second, your revenue will suffer to a large extent. But just think about in the B2B segment, your businesses are depending on their growth on you. So if your service goes down, it directly impacts their revenues, directly impacts how they're looking at growing their business, and that in itself becomes very important for you to look at while you're developing technology for your B2B. While I think it's a important covenant while building any platform, while building anything in the world, but it becomes even more important while you're building in the B2B segment. I'll take two examples from the business that we have at Bizongo as well, and try and explain the kind of problem statements there that exist, and a little bit different kind of problem statements. Like when you look at unbranded finished goods and a kind of a market which is manufacturing first, customized, everything is customized. So you cannot think about e-commerce in the traditional sense of things, where you buy a lot of materials, get the materials into your warehouse, stock them, do the quality checks, and then ship to the users. What becomes important for you to do in this segment is, because you cannot stock it, because everything is customized, it's made to order. When the customer tells you, then you manufacture. Quality becomes very, very important. And we were seeing in our business a lot of quality rejections. A simple intuitive feature to ask the seller to do a quality check with the right specification, and giving a certificate of authentication from the seller end at the seller factory without having to create anything, actually reduced for us the quality rejections by 30 to 35%. And these are kind of problem statements which you will not find in normal e-commerce, because quality checks get done at warehouse level. But it's a little bit of a different problem statement that you'll find while dealing with a manufacturing first sort of a setup, and something which is different in that way. So that's just one example. There are countless problem statements which are unique in this sort of a setup, and helps manufacturers do better. And you all of you can keep that in mind while you build technology for B2B. That's one just a last thing I had before we take any questions as such. But this is what our kind of platform looks like. It's as I said, it's completely modular. It helps enterprises take full advantage of services that a platform for unbranded goods offer. Can be scaled to everything. But all the tenets that I talked about just in the last slide are something that should be kept in mind as you really start building for India first, unorganized, fragmented market, B2B market, which just a very specific problem statements to a developing country like India. Yeah, so I think that's all I had from the presentation, but would love to take any questions. Urvashi, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ankit. We will have a couple of questions. So I'm going to now bring them on the stage. And the first question is, I don't know if you can read it, but it's in a B2B manufacturing portfolio like yours, which intuitive technologies are being executed apart from something related to the mechanism used in the manufacturing process, for example, IT side?
Yeah, I think so. As I said, we are a platform first company, right? So we don't manufacture. We obviously enable the manufacturing partners to manufacture. What we help them with is complete transparency, production planning, and tracking of their entire manufacturing process, which gives them the ability to give that visibility to their customers. We have a unique auto replenishment led supply chain automation system, which helps manufacturers just know every time how much they need to manufacture and what is the priority. That simple thing helps them increase their on-time deliveries to customers by more than like 30-40%. In the industry that we operate in, the on-time delivery percentage was around 78%. But when we work with our automated supply chain and a priority-driven system, we're able to increase it to upwards of 90-95%. So that's something that we do on that side.
Wow, that's great. Well, thank you. We have another question right now. Is considering the category of customers in B2B are very different from the B2C customers. So what is your suggestion for B2B business to penetrate these various sectors?
Yeah, I think it is different than B2C. And as I talked about, it's important to understand the user, the company. It's important to really build for that India first mindset in this category. It's really important for you to think about, when you build for these businesses and try to penetrate the sector, are you building the right sort of the technology stack to give that offering across the board to all of your enterprise customers? So I think, as I talked about the 6 tenants in the slide before, that's what I would repeat and say focus on.
Cool. Well, we have furthermore questions. Probably just going to have one short question, which is, what are the main 3 criteria to keep in mind while building the technology for B2B space?
Yeah, I think make it intuitive, plan for spikes, understand that your user is just not the person using it, but the entire company. These 3 things I would say, keep in mind while you build technology for the B2B space.
Well, this is really helpful. So thank you so much for this informative technology talk. And I think since we are running out of the time, we have a couple of more questions, but I would suggest you guys to reach Ankit. And I really, really appreciate you taking your time off from your busy schedule and join us here today. So thank you so much. And thank you so much, all the attendees, for listening to this wonderful talk.
No problems. Thank you, Rishi.
Thanks.